tribes stepped out and said, we're going to come up with an alternate means of overthrowing a jurisdictional supremacy of an interim government, because first you have to know what is their foundational determination to them maintaining interim power.
Yeah.
And Noble Drew Ali gave us the answer. I'm gonna leave these people in power long enough for you to learn how to run a government.
Mm-hmm.
Why we didn't learn how to run? Why we didn't know how to run a government when Noble Drew Ali came?
Right.
Because we had been at war and they had killed off all of the competent leadership.
Go ahead.
So now we have to rebuild competent leaders from the grassroots level. And somebody has to control how these people moving on the land, even if it ain't us, until we can get to the position where we can run our own government, tribal networking, right? They know that if at any given time we figure out how their government systems operate to control us, we can dissent with the agreement of the collective to dissolve the fraudulent corporation, right? So they using RICO to keep you financially impotent in the pursuit of liberation from the corporation.
Right.
Right. The COINTELPRO was looking for the one.
Right.
Right. And everybody that they arrested, they said Charles Manson was the one.
Right.
He got wrapped up under COINTELPRO too.
Go ahead.
They say Joseph Senku was the one. And they trained him to go against Manson in the race war, and they both went rogue when they got out of prison.
Hey, did they RICO Manson too?
They didn't RICO. No, they didn't RICO. He didn't have assets.
Okay. Yeah. So
They never
accused. Got assets,
they didn't. Yeah, they didn't accuse him of racketeering, right? Which is any means that you can make money as living off the fat of the land. They call that a racket.
Yeah. Hey, okay. Let me ask you this. Did they RICO? We know they RICO Doc, because people think that Doc is Dr. Malachi Z. York is in jail for molestation. That's what they promote online. Doc is not in jail for molestation. He's in jail for RICO. Yeah. Yeah. So they telling you, oh, he got 35, this 135 counts. They making up a whole bunch of bullshit.
Okay, so now that's called a collateral attack in the judicial system. They attacking his character with the false child molestation allegations, right? And as long as people accepting the false narrative that's assassinating character, they call that hanging in effigy. If you look up hanging in effigy, it is literally to kill your character in the public spotlight, like they doing Diddy right now. Whether he right or whether he wrong, good, bad, or indifferent, the example remains the same. See, they used to be able to look, they used to be able to sacrifice the innocent, Malachi, in order to allow the guilty to roam free and continue their tyranny. As long as the focus is on the false allegations against Malachi, nobody's going to pay attention to Liar Cohen, Jimmy Iovine, Ted Fields, Clive Davis. We ain't going to never pay them no attention because they dangling a priest of the land as if he was a priest from one of their churches in front of us, and they using the gossip channel. We got the gossip channel is the lowest form of information, and none of it needs to be verified for it to be passed around like the plague. They know that we operate from the gossip angle because the women used to use the gossip circle to get critical information across the battlefield. And that's why everybody know, don't tell Gladys what you don't want the world to know. Because soon as you tell Gladys, she's going to tell everybody she know. Right? So the gossip circle, if you can come up with some juicy dirt, will keep that in the forefront of the people mind, because now you got somebody to condemn, but you ain't seeing the right person. They sacrificed Michael Jackson for trying to protect the kids in Hollywood from what he went through. Right? But everybody think Mike touching kids now. You can't tell them otherwise, because the media did a good job of hanging him in effigy. But when you figure out what's really going on, it starts to make sense. And now the gossip starts to go to a mumble, and critical information take over the gossip circles then. Critical information about what we've been lied about. So that's why we put it in the public domain with the receipts, so people can know what we're talking about and they can go look it up and prove it. So now the gossip is, we know who he is, right? So Rico was a companion to the Rex 84, right? Rex 84 readiness exercise 1984 was given in 1984. But when you look at the list of the politicians that was active in DC in 1970, you know, and then you look at who was active in 84, it's about 75% of the same people.
Damn.
So they know what they're doing.
Yeah, go ahead.
They know what they're doing. They're giving you a rollout to corral as many people under a misleading piece of information as they can. Because as long as they can keep misleading everybody, then nobody can correct the course, because nobody's going to listen to the one that's trying to tell you to go the right way, because the gossip is too juicy to follow on the dirty path.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why they have to do all of these different strategies and tactics, but we not recognizing it for what it is. It's warfare.
Right.
Soon as we realize that it's warfare, it takes a different dynamic, because now you have to rely on the ones who study warfare to tell you how the war being fought.
Right.
And it's being fought in front of your face. Like all that water didn't come from that hurricane.
Damn, so right now no mountains.
Look, they said 2 bridges collapsed. They blew them bridges, just same way they did in Katrina.
Mm-hmm.
They keep doing the same thing. Every time they start to lose, they throw a tantrum and cause mass casualty events. I said this 6 months ago, beware the mass casualty events, they coming.
Mm-hmm.
Pay attention to the weather and pay attention to the so-called terrorist alert.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Mm-hmm. Then we got a mothership been sitting out here since March and ain't nobody reporting on it yet. The Pentagon said it.
Right. I heard that.
And Harvard said it. When I do my post, I'm gonna put it up. But it's been sitting there. It's just sitting there. Now, people then took videos of it with using this cloud cloaking device. But you can see the bright ass lights through the cloud.
Mm-hmm.
Right? But we don't know what it is, because we don't know if the government running a psychological operation on us or if it's somebody there. So if they really there, they need to get your attention. In order to get your attention, they just let the people do what they want to do to you to get you focused on that. And then they make, okay, now this is what's really going on.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So they use the different laws. Look, when they came out with RICO, this is when George Herbert Walker Bush, as a oil tycoon, was bringing tons and tons of cocaine on oil barges from Central and South America, because the oil barges that he owned was able to bypass customs inspections.
Yeah, that's right. Texas.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so now While he's doing that, he's knowing where he's about to put all this dope. This is when it was just the late night thing, everybody popping Quaaludes.
Yeah, the
and
rock and roll party.
And snorting snorting powder all night.
In Arkansas with Bill Clinton and there was the other dude named that pilot they had, his pilot, George Bush pilot.
Now remember, Bill Clinton's CIA is codenamed the Snowman.
Right.
He from Arkansas.
Go ahead.
He the Snowman from Arkansas.
Go ahead.
Let that sink in for a minute.
Barry Seal, that's his name. SAR 205. Barry Seal was the pilot working for Bush and Clinton. They had him whacked, allegedly, for YouTube purposes.
The Behold the Pale Horse gave the whole blueprint of the march of George Herbert Walker Bush.
Go ahead.
You got to remember, whatever you seen in the beginning of America, you have to see at the fall of America. And when you go back to the judicial system and the Bar Association, you trace back to 1863. King George and his decree telling them to take everything from us using the law. This is instructions to barristers, right? You can show the people how to look it up if you want to, Elder, while we're on here. You go to Google, type in First Charter Bar Association, Savannah, Georgia. Once you know what they do,
they never RICO'd in court.
Every time you see one of us sitting there for a RICO, you've seen them natives in there under RICO.
I know what you're saying with that. Like I know what you're saying. Like Doc is a native and he was a chief, right? But I'm saying like for the people that they say, oh yeah, well he a native. The government they agree with Doc on paperwork.
Well, you gotta remember the ones they got that they recognize, about 75% of them is on a reservation.
Yeah, $5 Indians. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So I don't never see no $5 Indians in court for RICO. Because they not part of the United States. They not. It says that when I looked it up, it said that you got to be a citizen.
The federal government have law enforcement jurisdiction on all reservations.
Go ahead.
That's part of the reservation treaties.
Yeah.
Is that the federal government can come on the reservation at any time, but the state government can't do it.
But it's still so like a sheriff can come on their land, but
no, sheriff can't come. It got to be a U.S. Marshal.
Oh yeah,
it got to be U.S. Marshal or Federal Bureau of Investigations. It cannot be county sheriffs. It cannot be state troopers. It has to be federal government.
Now let me ask you this. So what's the difference between? Okay, so the federal government that's still part of the United States Corps, right?
Yep, that's the controlling arm of the corporation. The treaties is what give them sole jurisdiction over the reservations. The treaties, the reservation treaties, it's in the treaties that the federal government can come and regulate the tribe under the pretense of criminal activity, of course, but they can come onto the reservation. But the local law enforcement has no jurisdictional authority on the reservation. Right? That's a treaty that they gave them when they set them up on the reservations. The reservations was to keep them on reserve in case we don't remember who we is, and then they can replace us with them.
Damn.
We not finna be replaced.
No.
We irreplaceable. Right? And now, so what's the next remedy in law? Grandfather clause. What's the grandfather clause? You want to pull it up?
Let's go ahead. And so I wonder, while I'm looking this up, so they also with they saying that the head of organizations, like they labeled Larry as the leader of the gangster disciples. So that means that anybody that's a gangster disciple, and if they do a criminal, they can.
So our grandfather clause of our tribal jurisdiction under Article 77 of the Iroquois Confederacy, the document has never been overturned. To overturn that, you have to overturn the entire constitution of the corporation. Under Article 77 of the Iroquois Confederacy, it gives us the right, if we grandfather in, to serve eviction on the corporation masquerading as our government, as a foreign body politic, is what it's called. A de facto corporation with the assumed jurisdiction while we learn to run government. We can run it now. They can go.
All right, the title to that with that, my question is, okay, so we know that the federal government pretty much with COINTELPRO, everybody know about COINTELPRO, there was some corruption along the lines with the federal government. Now, so in order to get justice from what the federal government did doing to our chiefs on the land, who do we go to if the federal government is the highest form of government on the land? I mean, like besides the tribal government. Go ahead.
The tribal governments becomes the superior government when all of the tribes are competently notified about the change in jurisdictional supremacy. A traceable legal argument can be verified by any tribe that wants to verify that the Iroquois Confederacy was never overturned. It was just, we're not going to use this no more. Let's use this. That grandfather clause to Article 77, we did that on your show.
Yeah,
we read it into the public domain.
Right.
To serve eviction on the corporation, which goes back to why we kept referring people to the Indigenous Rights Act. Right. That lets us know that our oral traditions are still valid. So you hear me all the time on here, different shows saying that I follow the oral tradition so we can assume a superior jurisdictional position over the corporation. We have to keep going over this until it click for the critical mass of awareness among the tribes. So we keep going over information and we keep telling them over and over, because putting it in the public domain is the oral tradition of the tribal people of the land. So the more we can inform them, right, the more they can become aware that they can stop entertaining the corporation so that it can go ahead and die. Right? And the person or the character tasked with the announcement is 45. Right? Remember, I told you, I said, I don't care about it one way or the other. But I know what he's doing. The same with Kamala. Her job is to fail miserably. Whore Babylon.
Right. She's doing it. So trust and believe.
Yeah. And Queen Candace Owens is making so she help it. The Candace Queens, the only people that the Romans feared. Come on now.
Right.
All of the history is playing out at the close of the age in reverse. So we go back to King George, because George Herbert Walker Bush in 1990, you can go get the Behold a Pale Horses in there, passed the law with a Senate Select Committee that he handpicked. And the law made him, in effect, King George I of the United States Corporation.
Wow.
And then he had to send us off 3 massive warnings that he was about to make his move to take over. It's called 3 knocks. World Trade Center, Federal Building, Oklahoma City, World Trade Center. The World Trade Center was hit twice because that's called the Gemini effect.
Right.
Right. In the Federal Building in Oklahoma City, that was the 2-ball cane. That's the ball swinging from one pillar to the next. It's all symbolism in the secret societies, and we had to educate ourselves into the different forms of education until we can plainly see it enough to explain it to common people, so we can reclaim the government or the role of government. Right? We can't reclaim the role of government, and the people want to entertain the shenanigans of the political theater. And this is why they keep trying to get everybody to vote, knowing that the vote does not elect the president. Never, it haven't elected the president since the advent of the Electoral College.
Right.
And they know who's going to be voting, but you don't. They know who they going to vote for, but you don't. They only trying to rally the votes, excuse me, to see who it is that has the influence to round up enough people to float their system another 4 years.
Go ahead. That's
if
right.
you have the poor, but you don't understand the failure of their system, you gonna participate in the shenanigans, and they gonna know we ain't ready.
I got two questions for you, man. That the first question I got for you to tie in with this tape is that people say that Big Meech shouldn't be mentioned with Larry Hoover, Jeff Ford, and Dr. Malachi Z. York. And he got Big Meech got Rico too. But could you break down, so because people don't think that Big Meech was a tribal leader, and so different perspectives on that. Could you break down why Big Meech is being mentioned in the same sentence with Larry Hoover and Jeff Ford, who are all pretty much victims? Even Big Meech is a victim of this system, because the CIA is the one that would bring in the shit. George W. Bush now. So could you go in on that a little bit about why we mentioned Big Meech as part of the? Go ahead.
Okay, so we track the chiefs as they grow up on the land by what they develop into as an adult. We won't know them until we see their works. The critical thing that Big Meech was doing that nobody else on the land was doing, which tells us who he is he was teaching the young men how to live with money. And when you have wealth, how are you supposed to treat other people? This was part of his routine. Then this is why it took them so long to get him, because they had a structure to how they was learning to live with money, so that the money can never be used as the tool to tear down what he's building. Right? And he got the blood of the people from the land. So when we put the two together, because he have the blood, because he raised himself up first, and then he reached back for his brothers, for I am my brother's keeper. Right? He's showing that he's doing the function of a chief that was given a purpose that we didn't even know was needed until he performed it. Right? So he was teaching those boys how to treat the women when they got the wealth. They wasn't doing freak off parties like Diddy. They probably been to some Diddy parties though. Some of them. Right? But the whole thing being is what he was teaching them, we still need a teacher that effective that can perform that function, take away the criminal element. Right? But the person that's creating the crime always gonna know who to get, because they're gonna watch their performance. Their performance is gonna tell the system operators this is a potential chief. Activate COINTELPRO. The COINTELPRO records, they kept records. It ain't like they don't have records. And they have names that was on the list of potential leaders. They're not going to bring, none of his attorneys is going to bring this up because it'll spoil the entire system.
Yeah, they said they had a book. Man, they said they went in this library with the killer clowns where they got all their records at. They said they had a book. One dude said they had a book on the Moors. They had every single thing you could think of. Anybody ever mentioned the word Moor? They got a main platform. They had them in this book. They had every organization, everything that they teach, and then they had another book with Tupac, full of everything Tupac and the Black Panthers. Then they had another book on Tookie Williams and the Crips. I mean, these people got a whole library on us. That's what that dude Dart Hart Perry said. That they got more information than regular than anybody else about us.
Look, when you pull the COINTELPRO documents is thousands of pages by itself. And those documents have mentioned other documents within them. Normally they redact them with a black ink so that you won't say, okay, now that I got this, what about Operation Mockingbird? Right? What about Operation Plaster Falcon? Right? All these other government secret programs. Remember, everything they did in secret. And everything we do out in the open, in the public domain for the benefit of the most people. So the Freedom of Information Act was the catalyst to exposing everything they was doing. They can only keep something secret for a certain period of time, and then it has to be made accessible to public for inspection under the Freedom of Information Act. We know that in Chicago that it was at least 400 names of potential leaders listed under the COINTELPRO document because it say that the COINTELPRO was watching for 400 select individuals in the city of Chicago, right in the paperwork. So we know that it was 400 people, right? And they kept the list of names. We know Larry name on there, Angel Bay, David Barksdale, Shorty Freeman, all their names on there. Booney Black, right? Yeah, Fred Hampton was he was a classic example of when the government panic, what they do to silence you. He was on a mission to unite all the clans, right? We reconstitute under community organizations. The government can't tolerate us reconstituting tribal systems under their jurisdictional domain because it threatens their power structure. Therefore, anybody that's putting together an organization using the traditional tribal methods is slated for criminal persecution and prosecution, if not death. Right? Normally, they send some of the dirty Moors in to murder the most powerful of the leadership because they can't lead that up to paleface. Because they have to give us a reason to discover that we ain't fighting paleface. If every time we got ready to take over or make a monumental move, paleface stepped in and executed us, then we wouldn't know who we was fighting. Right? But once you look back on history, hindsight is 20/20. Anybody that can't see that it's been some niggas holding us back the whole time is blind and don't know their own culture.
Hey, the next question I got for you, Rod, that I seen that that this RICO is United States corporation, and a lot of it is based on codes, them breaking codes and acts. It's acts and codes. It's not really technically law outside of United States. But I noticed that they filed for their company to reestablish their company in Puerto Rico. And do you think that's a connection between them calling it the RICO and that they corporation is filed in Puerto Rico? Is there a connection there?
Yep, it's a connection. Pirates of the Caribbean, Skull and Bones. It's the signature of George Herbert Walker Bush and the Skull and Bones Society because Puerto Rico was the first island that the Spanish used to stockpile the gold that they stole from us from over here before they went back to Europe to pay for their restitution to the Catholic Church. Right? So they came, the Pirates of the Caribbean is when Puerto Rico was the rich port, or the port of riches, where you put your riches at as a pirate, and we have it heavily surrounded, and that's why cannons are on all corners of Puerto Rico.
Wow, that's okay, go ahead. I've been there, I've seen that.
Right. Then when you go to the fact that Puerto Rico is still not officially a state, but the corporate charter for the Federal Reserve is in Puerto Rico. Let that sink in.
That's good stuff right there. That's good stuff.
Okay, so Puerto Rico is the pirates' control of the wealth. The pirates are the conquistadors and the Huguenots. The Huguenots is the French version of the conquistadors. Right? And the they had different names for the English. Well, I think they was called merchant seamen. Right? When they first came over here, they was all melanated, but the history books been whitewashed to give you the illusion that the pale face is the person who's doing the dirt, when Elijah told us Yaqub left niggas in charge. The Barbary Wars, yeah, the Barbaries were Etruscans, right? This is where you get your term barbarian from.
Hairy nigga.
Yep. But they was fighting the hairy Europeans, who later became classified as Barbary out of the Barbary Wars. But they wasn't the ones that was the Barbary first. Because it's misdirection, right? It's the shell game. Everything that they did, they tried to push it off on the pale face so that the ones of us that's the earthborn that belong here won't never see their dirty black hands at play. Right?